Hello again, and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. It's Monday, the 9th of January. I'm Andrew Wilson, and this is Scotland at 7. This evening, I have the latest daily update from Ukraine on day 320 of the illegal Russian war of aggression and imperial ambition. Then I will introduce our guest for this evening, and then together we will discuss today's headlines from Scotland and around the world. 2 women were killed and several other people were wounded in a Russian missile strike on a market in the village of Shevkinovka in eastern Ukraine. Several civilians were injured in the shelling, including a 13-year-old girl. The Kremlin has rejected a Ukrainian report that a senior Russian official has been promoting the idea of a peace deal over Ukraine with European officials. When asked about whether Dmitry Kozak, the deputy head of Russia's presidential administration, had been holding meetings with European officials in an attempt to force Kyiv to sign a peace deal, a Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, said that was another fake. Russia says it is confident the defense ministry was correct when it said that 600 Ukrainian servicemen had been destroyed in an attack on the city of Kramatorsk, despite reporting that showed the attack missed its target. President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Ukrainian forces are repelling constant attacks on Bakhmut in the eastern Donbass region and are holding their positions in nearby Soledar in arduous conditions. Donetsk Governor Pavlo Kirilenko said 1 person was killed in strikes on Bakhmut and 8 others in the region were wounded. Kirilenko also said there were rocket attacks on Kramatorsk and Konstantinivka. And President Zelensky has denounced what he said was Russia's failure to observe a 36-hour ceasefire it had declared for Orthodox Christmas by launching attacks on the Ukrainian cities. Now, we are lucky enough to be joined this evening by Chris McCusker. Chris is a carer, an activist, a trades unionist, and a human rights campaigner. Buenas noches, Chris. How are you?
Buenas noches, compadre. ¿Cómo estás?
Doing away just fine, thank you, Chris, and it's great. Thank you for joining us on Broadcasting Scotland this evening.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure.
Oh, and I should say a good new year to you as well.
And thank you very much, Andrew. The same to yourself.
Thanks, Chris. Now, our first story this evening is that in a media briefing today, the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, warned that hospitals in Scotland were approaching capacity, as she announced that Health Secretary Humza Yousaf would be announcing new measures to ease the pressures on the Scottish NHS in Parliament tomorrow. Some of the new measures expected to be announced include staffing at the helpline NHS 24 will be increased, doctor surgeries will in some areas open on Saturdays to divert people from hospitals, and NHS boards could be allowed to cancel non-essential operations in order to prioritise life-saving care and to redeploy staff to areas under the greatest pressure. The First Minister pointed to the extraordinary levels of winter flu in her speech and said that cases of strep A and other respiratory viruses had resulted in a significantly increased demand for NHS services. Ms Sturgeon also said that vaccination continues to be absolutely vital. She said, if you are eligible for a COVID or flu vaccine and haven't had it already, please do get vaccinated. And remember, if you are the parent or carer of a child who is eligible, please make sure that they get vaccinated too. When asked if she had ever used private health care, the First Minister responded by emphatically saying that she never had. When asked if she would encourage wealthier Scots to access private health care to alleviate the pressure on the NHS, she replied, "No, I wouldn't encourage people to go private. People have the right to make that choice." She continued, "My job as First Minister is to work to ensure that we have a health service that is publicly funded, a health service that is available and free at the point of need for everybody who needs it." So, Chris, a key part of the plan to alleviate some of the pressures is to deal with the large number of patients whose discharge from hospital has been delayed. The First Minister announced further funding for local health and care partnerships in order to book up care home beds for patients to allow them to be given interim care whilst a more permanent care packages being put in place. This is said to be one of the key aspects of the problem at the moment, what used, I think, to be called bed blocking a few years ago. So do you think that paying the operators of care homes to use their spare capacity is going to be a sufficiently significant answer to some of the challenges that SNHS are facing just now?
Well, controversially, I don't think it will be a significant answer. I think it will vastly aid the current issues within the Scottish NHS. And when you refer to bed blocking, you know, it is, if you look at it kind of like a mathematical equation, that you know, in order to release beds, then you know, obviously people have to have a care package in place. Now, if that can't be provided by family members, then obviously it has to be provided for by the state. And again, this is the whole ethos of trying to integrate the care system into the NHS, so that you know, hopefully people will not fall through the cracks and ultimately be without a care package when they are due to be released. So if there's a kind of like, if I could use the sort of like the care homes as a kind of like an interim stopgap, which would then allow extra capacity to be found in hospitals, and being in a caring setting, a caring environment, whilst that care package is being worked out, then you know, obviously it's going to alleviate an awful lot of the pressures within the NHS, because what we're currently seeing at the moment is the you know, again, it's a knock-on effect. It's like a set of dominoes. You know, because ambulances are turning up and they're not able to, if you pardon the expression, they're not able to empty the ambulances, uh, you know, for the people to be triaged and then be put onto, you know, if it is required, onto a ward, you know, for whatever kind of treatment or care that is actually needed, then ultimately that then allows the ambulances to go back out and you know, try and keep up to the response times. You know, so I mean, it's I can look at it from a perspective, not being an NHS worker, but it's a bit like being working in an airport. You know, if an aircraft takes a delay for any reason, it's got a knock-on effect. It will then put other aircraft out of position, and you know, it will have the ripple effect throughout the whole industry.
Absolutely, Chris. As you say, it's as much about logistics nowadays and about trying to make the system work as smoothly and as efficiently as possible. One other thing from the press conference that the First Minister gave today, as I was saying, during the round of questions, Ms Sturgeon was asked if she ever made use of private healthcare, to which she replied, "No, I don't, and I never have." So it strikes me that obviously she was distinguishing herself from Rishi Sunak, who refused to answer that question, the same question, yesterday. So what else do you think the First Minister is doing in answering this way, apart from simply distinguishing herself from Rishi Sunak? And I suppose also, as a related question, does it really matter how Rishi Sunak accesses healthcare, at least whilst he's in the UK, given that everybody knows that he's a multimillionaire?
Well, you know, for me, I think it was a validation by the First Minister that she's more than safe and happy to use our NHS, because you know, the staff, and I can speak from experience, you know, being an unpaid carer. You know, anytime that I've had dealings directly with NHS staff, they've been very helpful, and you know, within reasonable timescales, you know, things happen. So and again, the whole question of what does it matter if the first minister doesn't use private healthcare, but Rishi Sunak does. Again, I think that was answered eloquently by the first minister by saying, it's not down to her to force people to, choose private healthcare. If people want to do that and they're able to pay for it, then they're free to do so. I mean, contrary to popular belief, that's what happens in any modern democracy. Uh, you, you, it's a bit like the John Cougar Mellencamp song "Hot Dogs and Hamburgers." Everybody's got the choice. Do you know what I mean? Everybody's got the choice. To do what they want. So, from that point of view, I think it's only socially responsible as well that people who are earning above the median earnings per annum that they actually do put a wee bit extra in for the NHS, because again, it's something to be valued and something to be cared.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. That's some great perspective from you. Thank you. We'll move to our next story now, which is related because the Scottish Government has been continuing talks with nursing and teaching trade unions in an attempt to negotiate a settlement that will bring an end to the upcoming industrial action. Following talks with teachers' unions and COSLA on Friday, the Education Secretary Shirley-Ann Somerville said that she valued Scotland's teaching workforce and recognised the vital importance of reaching a fair and affordable settlement on pay. She said, "We are open to considering options to resolve this dispute through the Scottish Negotiation Committee for Teachers and potential scope for compromise." The Scottish Government has been negotiating directly with health and teaching trade unions with the aim of finding deals which are fair and affordable for all concerned. The Scottish Government points out that their options have been limited by the unprecedented pressures facing Scotland's budget. Scotland's teachers and NHS workers are already the best paid in all of the UK nations. Following talks between the Health Minister and trade unions in England today, Unite has accused Steve Barclay of insulting its members after suggesting one-off extra payment would have to be linked to a productivity increase. Unite is one of several unions to represent ambulance workers, and Oni Kassab, its national lead officer, told reporters that talks had gone not well after he emerged from his meeting with Barclay. He went on to say, "Unfortunately, the government have missed yet another opportunity to put this right. We came here in good faith. What they want to talk about is productivity. Our members are working 18-hour shifts. How you become more productive with that, I do not know." So, Chris, firstly, with regard to the different approaches that we're seeing from Holyrood and Westminster, as a trade unionist, are you encouraged by the approach that the Scottish Government seems to be taking? Albeit, I should be clear, the talks with the teachers' unions on Friday have proved unsuccessful, and the industrial action that's scheduled for later this week is now still going ahead.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think, as you'll be able to testify yourself. I've constantly said in previous episodes that the engagement between the Scottish Government and trade unions, is vastly superior to what I can see the engagement between the Westminster Government and trade unions. The need for constant dialogue, even when there is not any industrial action imminent or even pending, as testament to how the Scottish Government are open and willing to engage with trade unions. I mean, as you know yourself, I formerly served on the SNP trade union exec, and again, we had a great working relationship with the STUC. We had obviously backbench representation in Westminster and Holyrood. So that we had a clear chain of process. That if we had issues, that we could directly bring them to both parliaments through Chris Stevens and Tom Arthur as well. So that is the way that to properly function is to engage. And yes, the First Minister has pointed out that there isn't any money left. Because of the infinite budget that we're having to deal with. But again, it doesn't mean that because you don't have that, then you cease discussions. Discussions are ongoing. There's discussions about terms and conditions. There's discussions to be had about collective bargaining. There's health and safety discussions as well, and stuff like that. So I mean, it's a constant need for dialogue, and it's welcome the fact that the Scottish Government do have that open dialogue with unions.
Thanks, Chris. That's some great insight from you. I'm very grateful. Now, we'll move on to our next story now, because Jeremy Hunt has announced a cut to the financial support offered to businesses to help with their energy bills. The existing scheme, which began in October, caps the unit cost of gas and electricity for all businesses until the end of March this year. The new scheme, coming in from the 1st of April and will run until the 31st of March 2024, under the scheme, eligible non-domestic customers who have a contract with a licensed energy supplier will see a unit discount of up to £6.97 per megawatt hour automatically applied to their gas bill, and a unit discount of up to £19.61 per megawatt hour applied to their electricity bill, except for those already benefiting from lower energy prices. A higher level of support will be provided to businesses in sectors identified as being the most energy and trade intensive, predominantly manufacturing industries. A long-standing category associated with higher energy usage, these firms are often less able to pass through cost to their customers due to international competition. Businesses in scope will receive a gas and electricity bill discount based on a supported price, which will be capped at a maximum unit discount of £40 per megawatt hour for gas and £89.10 per megawatt hour for electricity. Gas prices have fallen in recent weeks, which, if sustained through the rest of the year, could reduce the cost of these policies to the UK government and cut energy bills for consumers and businesses. The Federation for Small Businesses has warned that smaller firms have lower margins and are less able to deal with cost pressures such as rising energy bills. The British Chambers of Commerce said more than a third of firms admitted they were having difficulty paying their energy bills even with the existing government support. Commenting, Stuart Hosey MP said, "This was an opportunity for the UK government to ease the worries for millions of businesses across these islands, but once again they have failed to deliver. Politics is about priorities, and the Chancellor has his all wrong. Instead of outlining a robust and long-term plan which would support businesses through the crisis his party created, he has offered a mere sticking plaster. Coupled with the ongoing disaster that is Brexit, which ended the freedom of movement and closed borders to our European allies, businesses have every right to be concerned for their future, and nothing the UK government has said today will change that." He continued, "Instead of offering short-term solutions, the Chancellor himself must come before Parliament and outline a bolder, stronger and long-term vision for businesses so they can prepare for the months ahead, or face devastating consequences." So, Chris, Jeremy Hunt met industry groups last week to discuss this scheme, the current scheme he described as unsustainably expensive. He said last week that the energy scheme was one of the most generous in Europe, and added that no government can permanently shield businesses from this energy price shock. Now, does he really mean that? Energy policy and energy pricing is reserved to Westminster. Is Hunt saying that somehow his hands are tied?
I think, yeah, there's a lot of doublespeak in that compared to the warm plaudits they were given last year. When this energy crisis came to light, And that they said that the package of measures that were going to be announced were, the best thing since sliced bread. And what we've found now is the fact that the British government's approach to this is completely cockeyed. Compared to the likes of France, and ultimately here in Spain as well. The percentages are totally skewed, and Britain is at the bottom end of the sort of like league table for governments actually being able to safeguard their citizens from the worst effects of the current crisis at this moment in time. The other side of the scale as well is the fact that, from a Scottish perspective, we could do so much better, if we were in charge of, our own destiny. Obviously, a country that is naturally rich in renewable energy, and not to mention the fossil fuel industry as well. And yet, we are uh, charged at a different rate to the rest of the people in the United Kingdom. And yet, most of the energy is sourced in our own country. So, I think that could, again, be, a complete game changer. But, going back to what I was saying earlier on about the individual countries in Europe have taken, the decision to cut out the middleman and just, put everything straight down on a flat rate, so that people can go about their normal day business, not thinking about, or not worrying, should I say, about their energy usage and the actual energy costs, because they're getting offset at source. And until this energy crisis is put on a more even keel, which it has got a number of factors, notwithstanding what's happening in Ukraine, but also I think it will possibly be alleviated with the opening of the Chinese borders now. I think that that will vastly help. It should vastly help a reduction, and but that again is obviously going to take a certain amount of time for that to get factored in.
Of course, Chris. Thank you. Let's move on to our next story now, because the SNP has warned that Scotland is stuck in a state of Brexit limbo, with all main Westminster parties committed to the failing project, despite widespread public opinion turning against it. It comes as an opinion poll revealed a majority of the UK public, 57%, said that they believe Brexit was causing more problems than it solved. The survey also revealed falling support from Tory voters, with 33% losing all faith in Brexit, while only 22% of Conservative voters still believe that the UK's exit from the EU has solved more problems than it has created. The SNP's spokesperson for Europe and EU accession, Alan Smith MP, said the poll should have served as a reality check for the Westminster parties, with Brexit having wreaked havoc on the economy while piling more pressure onto cost of living crisis hit households and businesses. Commenting, Alan Smith said, "This poll should serve as a reality check for the Westminster parties and serve as an opportunity to move forward with a plan to rejoin the EU. Instead, it's more likely to entrench even further their out-of-touch stance, demonstrating yet again that Scotland can only return to the EU with the full powers of independence. The economic chaos and added pressure the failed Brexit obsession has caused is only adding to the financial fears households and businesses are facing as a result of the Tory-made cost of living crisis. This is as much the failure of opposition at Westminster as it is on the Tories, though, with Labour and the Liberal Democrats' refusal to take the Tories to task over Brexit, rendering them complicit in the damage that's being caused to the country. So, Chris, the SNP are very much an outlier in terms of Westminster politics. The Tories of the Tory party, as currently constituted, is obviously very Brexit supporting. Sir Keir Starmer now says he wants to make Brexit work. The Lib Dems have changed their policy and are now a party that accepts Brexit, whereas the SNP continues to oppose. Do you think is that outlying position that the SNP are taking, is it working for the SNP, both in terms of Scottish politics and perhaps in terms of UK politics?
Well, I think in terms of Scottish politics, it's definitely working because, again, what you have is a party who are reflecting, the democratic wishes of the majority of the constituents within Scotland. It was 72%, 73%, that Scotland voted to remain. Throughout various constituencies, and every council area, was all for retaining membership of the European Union. So, and again, we see that, instant denial of democracy, and the Tories were able to ride coach and horses through our democratic wishes by saying that it was a UK vote. Now everybody knows that notwithstanding the population figures and also the landmass as well, that Scotland is always going to get left out in any questions, regarding our wishes, and we are never going to get 100%, in opinion polls to, do anything, out with independence. The
Yep.
key thing here is the fact that all four parties, because I think it's also the accepted stance of the DUP as well, as the fact that they have to go through with Brexit, and despite the glaring evidence, is the fact that they will not do it, in order to bite their nose off to spite their face.
Yep.
And so the only clear way that Scotland can be European again is to, get that elusive vote for independence. But again, Westminster government are going to continually filibuster. They're going to continually deny Scotland's democracy because they know that they need Scotland more than Scotland needs them.
Thanks, Chris. Let's move on now to our next item, because Rishi Sunak has been warned against slashing support for households, as a new report reveals the average household will be £2,100 worse off by the end of the next financial year. A new Resolution Foundation report has found that after housing costs, the typical income for a working age family is set to fall by 3% in the year to April and by a further 4% over the following 12 months. The report suggests the cumulative 7% drop in income will leave households worse off than before the COVID-19 pandemic and until 2028, with more than 6 million households reporting they are going hungry as a result. The SNP Social Justice spokesperson David Linden MP challenged the Prime Minister to guarantee the £400 energy bill support scheme will continue after April and to look at other ways to boost household incomes, including improving UK government pay deals for public sector workers and matching the SNP government's Scottish Child Payment of £25 per child per week. David Linden said, "The fact that the Tories have trashed the economy and household incomes so badly shows exactly why Scotland needs to become an independent country, to escape Westminster control and secure a more prosperous future." With the Tory cost of living crisis worsening, it would be unthinkable for Rishi Sunak to slash support for households, just as energy bills are set to rise yet again on his watch. The £400 energy bill support scheme must be extended beyond April to help households with rising bills, and the UK government must follow the lead of the Scottish SNP Scottish Government in improving public sector pay deals and matching the Scottish Child Payment across the UK to put money back in people's pockets. So, Chris, researchers for the Resolution Foundation have found that 11% of adults said that at some point over the past 4 weeks they went hungry because they did not have enough money. Now, before the pandemic, it was 5% who said that they went hungry for lack of money. So, what do you think the effect will that more than doubling of the numbers of folks who say that they are going hungry be? Will the effect be that the number of people going hungry will impact on their own individual health and then on the NHS as a result? The NHS, as we've been discussing, which is under considerable pressure.
Yeah, undoubtedly. Again, the provision for mental health in Scotland, to my mind, could be vastly improved. And that's right away from teenage CAMS, right the way through to adult mental health support. And if people are not eating properly because of a lack of money, then it's a catch-22 system. And somebody as analytic and as bright as Rishi Sunak, for him not to actually be able to compute that particular equation, then it says something really about his integrity, B, his morals. The actual from a morality point of view, it's as though that he has got blinkers on and is solely thinking about money, and it's money being the root of all evil. It encompasses the controlling government. From day one of that government and the 5 years that it has to run. But it's the way that the money is dealt with and apportioned. And it seems to me that when you've got a Tory government in charge, it's only going to be a continuation of the austerity regime that we've had for the last 13 years. Because quite clearly, and again, going back to what we were discussing earlier on about dealing with trade unions, is the fact that it's stinginess beyond any sense of reasonability. Because if inflation is ever increasing and prices are ever rising, I mean, such as a packet of pasta is considerably risen to about 35 pence. It was back in the likes of 2 years ago. Now you're looking at an average price of 75 pence just for one packet of pasta. So things have to be approached differently. Now, would we actually get that difference with a Labour government? I don't think so either, to be quite honest with you. And the only way that we are going to get that difference, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but unfortunately, I'm going to reinforce this, is the fact that Scotland needs to be in control of its own finances. And in order to do that, Scotland needs to be an independent country. So Alan Smith is 100% correct.
Thanks, Chris. We'll move on to international news now, because the Brazilian president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, has toured the wreckage of his presidential palace after an extraordinary day of political violence in the capital, Brasilia, saw thousands of far-right extremists run riot through the country's democratic institutions in a failed attempt to overthrow his week-old government. The massed attack by supporters of the ex-president, Jair Bolsonaro, was a stunning security breach that was immediately compared to the 6th January invasion of the US Capitol by followers of Donald Trump in 2021. Lula was not in Brasilia at the time of the attack, but he gave an angry speech blaming Bolsonaro for the chaos and promising that anyone involved will be punished. Calling those who took part in the attacks vandals, neo-fascists and fanatics, Lula ordered a federal intervention in the capital, bringing policing under the control of the central government. Lula, a veteran socialist, was sworn in as Brazil's new president last Sunday in celebrations attended by hundreds of thousands of Brazilians. Thousands of pro-Bolsonaro extremists have refused to accept Lula's victory in October's election, spending recent weeks camping outside army bases across the country and calling for a military coup. Bolsonaro, a far-right former army captain whose main international ally was Trump, flew out of Brazil on the eve of Lula's inauguration and is currently in Florida. He responded to Sunday's events with a short string of social media posts, but stopped short of condemning the mob outright. Instead, he hit out at Lula's allegations that he, Bolsonaro, was responsible. So, Chris, Bolsonaro had been stoking belief amongst his hardcore supporters that the electronic voting system used in Brazil was prone to fraud, though, of course, he never presented any evidence. And his lawmaker son, Eduardo Bolsonaro, has held several meetings with the former President Trump, longtime Trump ally Stephen Bannon, and senior campaign advisor Jason Miller. The US Senator Robert Menendez, who's a Democratic senator for New Jersey, tweeted, 2 years since the 6th January, Trump's legacy continues to poison our hemisphere. It should be said that Menendez chairs the Senate's Foreign Relations Committee. So do you sense the malign hand of Donald Trump and his financial backers in these events over the weekend in Brazil?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they actually do refer to Bolsonaro as the Trump of the tropics. And whilst it has to be pointed out again that the style of Bolsonaro's politics, the way that he does things, is more than acceptable to the Bolsonaro supporters. Which he thought he had a comfortable majority. But again, when we see that the democratic process is being exercised, and the tables are turned on them, very much as the tables were turned on Trump as well. They just don't like the actual outcome of the democratic vote. And it's a charge that is levelled not just in America, not just in Brazil, but it's also been levelled at the Scottish government as well. The Tories say it time and time again, is the fact that we don't respect the democratic outcome. But I think it has to be more simplistic than that. In our case, is the fact that, well, we didn't ask for it in the first place. So that the democratic mandate was exercised in Brazil, and of course, obviously, it was exercised in America as well. And it's a bit like well, we didn't get the result that we wanted, so it's our ball, we're going to take it away. And that's how these people are going to react. I think it was something in the region of 1,200 people were actually arrested earlier on that were in the tents and stuff like that. I mean that's a logistical nightmare in order to try and process them through the judicial system. To start with.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. We'll stay with international news now because Israel's National Security Minister has ordered police to ban Palestinian flags from public places in the latest crackdown by the country's new hardline right-wing government. Itamar Ben-Gvir's order follows a series of other punitive steps against the Palestinians since taking office late last month. Benjamin Netanyahu's new government has moved quickly against the Palestinians in retaliation for a Palestinian push for the UN's highest judicial body to give its opinion on Israel's 55-year military occupation of the West Bank. Israel has withheld nearly $40 million in Palestinian tax revenues and said it would transfer the money to victims of Palestinian militant attacks. It has stripped Palestinian officials of VIP privileges and even broke up a meeting of Palestinian parents discussing their children's education, claiming the meeting was unlawfully funded by the Palestinian Authority. Ben-Gvir, an extreme right-wing politician known for his anti-Arab views, drew widespread international condemnation when he visited Jerusalem's most sensitive holy site last week. The repeated moves have the potential to increase tensions after the deadliest year of Israel-Palestinian conflict in nearly 2 decades. That's according to a report by the Israeli rights group B'Tselem. Ben-Gvir's latest order is not the first battle overflying the Palestinian flag. The red, green and white flag carries great symbolism in the Israel-Palestinian conflict. Last May, Israeli riot police beat pallbearers at the funeral for the Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, who had been shot while covering the military raid in the Jenin refugee camp. Police ripped Palestinian flags out of people's hands and fired stun grenades to disperse the crowd of mourners. So, Chris, Ben-Gvir's repeated stunts have the potential to increase tensions, as I say, after the deadliest year of Israel-Palestinian conflict in nearly 2 decades, and that's according to a report by the Israeli rights group B'Tselem. But it struck me, in light of what we've been seeing and in light of the increased conflict, Israeli forces don't need an excuse to beat and kill Palestinians. So does the banning of the Palestinian Authority flag really make that much of a difference?
Well, the whole question of flags, as a centuries old one, and the denial of any country to, display their national flag through, their own identity, is something that we've, seen through countless wars and countless incursions and stuff like that, throughout history. If Britain had tried, and they did many times, to actually deny the tricolour to be flown in Ireland, most famously, obviously, at the GPO, when the IRA forces were held up there, and ultimately saw it through, and as they say, the rest is history. The decrying of anyone's national identity through a flag is, again, we even seen it in Scotland as well. It didn't go as far as the saltire was banned, but bagpipes were outlawed, and kilts, the wearing of plaid, which visibly identified you as being Scottish. Again, that was outlawed as well. So and it's nothing to do with just how they see themselves. It's more to do with the indignation of decrying someone's identity. And again, Israel have been doing this to Palestine for nigh on 50, 60, 70 years. And it's never going to get better when they demonise the actual citizens of a country. And as we've seen playing out in Ukraine and Russia and stuff like that, the oppressor never, rarely gets their way when the people actually are determined to fight back.
Completely. Thanks, Chris. Some great insights there from you. I'm very grateful. Now, the hole in the Earth's ozone layer, once the most feared environmental peril facing humanity, is set to be healed over most of the world within 2 decades, following decisive action by governments to phase out ozone-depleting substances, a new UN assessment has found. The loss of the ozone layer, which risked exposing people to harmful ultraviolet rays from the sun, is on track to be completely recovered by 2040 across the world, aside from the polar regions, according to the report. The poles will take a little longer. The ozone layer will fully bounce back by 2045 over the Arctic and 2066 over the Antarctic. Following alarm over the loss of ozone in the 1980s, the ozone layer has been steadily improving in the wake of the 1989 Montreal Protocol, an international agreement that has helped eliminate 99% of the ozone depleting chemicals, such as chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, that were then used as solvents and refrigerants. The UN said that the action taken on the ozone layer had also bolstered the more ponderous response to the climate crisis. CFCs are also greenhouse gases, and their continued uncontrolled use would have raised global temperatures by as much as 1 degree Celsius by the middle of the century, worsening an already dire situation where planet heating gases are still not declining. The unified global response to dealing with CFCs means that the Montreal Agreement should be considered the most successful environmental treaty in history and offers encouragement that countries of the world can come together and decide an outcome and act on it. That's according to David Fahey, a scientist at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, who is a lead author of this new UN assessment. So, Chris, as David Fahey suggests, does this announcement and this news that the hole in the ozone layer is gradually being repaired, does this indicate that, in fact, when people put their minds together properly to fixing an issue to do with climate change, that something can actually be done?
Yes, but it also starkly warns the amount of time that it takes to actually rectify the mistakes of the past. I mean, quite rightly, you were saying that was, as I remember it growing up as a kid, it was, the hot topic of the, most of the 80s. That everybody was talking about the ozone layer and, the CFCs that were in aerosols and stuff like that, and trying to cut out various amount of usage and whatnot. I get that space and time. If we apply that to the current crisis that we have at the moment, with our own environment, notwithstanding in Scotland, but globally, then it's going to take a hell of a long time in order to rectify the mistakes that that have been made in the erosion of environments throughout the majority of the world. I mean, if you look at the depletion of rainforests and stuff like that, and the cataclysmic effect that's had on the natural environment as well. People are beginning to be more socially aware of environmental groups and activist groups such as the Just Oil activists, who are constantly telling people to cut down on the amount of fossil fuels and stuff like that that are that's crippling the country at this moment in time. So again, when we look at back in the day when we first spoke about the ozone layer, and now the amount of time that because I mean we haven't heard anything in the last 40 years about the ozone layer. It's become unfashionable to talk about it, and then all of a sudden we're talking about it now because it's nearly repaired. So
Absolutely.
but I mean it's not the other important thing to remember is the fact that we don't just turn it off and go like that. Okay, right, that's it. It's been repaired now. We can carry on and go back to the old ways. In order to keep it repaired, we have to keep doing what we have been doing. And that obviously feeds into what we're facing in the current environmental crisis throughout the world.
Absolutely, Chris. Thank you. Now, back in Scotland, when the Scottish Parliament sits again tomorrow after Christmas, the Scottish Greens have said that they will be focusing on people, planet, and independence. The Scottish Greens co-leader, Lorna Slater, has said that 2023 will be a key year in Scotland's transition to a better and more sustainable future. Lorna Slater believes that 2023 will be a crucial year for Scotland and for the planet, and that it must be a year of environmental renewal and a recovery that works for ordinary people. In a statement, Ms Slater said, "Last year we led the change. With Scottish Greens in government, we delivered a 150% increase in the Scottish Child Payment to help vulnerable families through the worst cost crisis for generations, an end to permission for new incinerators, record investment in wildlife and nature, and free bus travel for everyone under 22. Scottish Greens say they want to build on their successes, deliver for people and planet, and continue Scotland's transition to a better and more sustainable future." In her ministerial role, Lorna Slater said that would include the next steps on a groundbreaking biodiversity strategy and the delivery of the deposit return scheme. Ms Slater said that these are the kind of changes that will leave a legacy Scotland can be proud of, adding, "With the powers of an independent country, we could do even more." Whether it is removing nuclear weapons from our waters, ending the climate-destroying oil and gas drilling in the North Sea, or rejoining the European Union, these are the big changes that can only be made with independence. That is why we will do everything we can to deliver a free and fair referendum on Scotland's future. The reality is that we are being held back by a cruel and incompetent Tory government in Westminster. With 3 Prime Ministers in 2022 alone, it is clear that we cannot afford another 12 months of Tory chaos. She continued, "By focusing on people, planet and independence, we will build a fairer, greener recovery." So, Chris, thinking about the politics for a moment, do you think that the Bute House Agreement, which brought the Greens into an arrangement with the Scottish Government, has been making a difference, either to the lives of voters or alternatively to the political fortunes of the Scottish Greens who are now in government?
Yeah, I think it has, but I mean, controversially, I would love to have the Greens in opposition. Because I think that the Greens would be able to push the Scottish Government a lot further, if they were in direct opposition. Now, I know that's a fanciful dream for the Greens to amass the amount of MSPs that are required for to be in opposition, but wouldn't it be wonderful? Because again, I think they could achieve so much. And but in saying that, working with the Scottish Government, working with the SNP, sorry, in Scottish Government, I think it's going to vastly improve the mental well-being of the citizens in Scotland. With radical reforms that are very much needed, such as free bus travel, cleaning up our waterways and stuff like that, and the looking after the actual forestation of Scotland, the actual natural, beautiful land that we've got, as something that's often missed out of politics. And politics, as you know, Andrew, always needs a conscious Green party, to bring these issues to the fore, because they're not at the highest pecking order of the Tories or the Labour, stuff like that. I mean, Tories always think about numbers. Labour always are constantly thinking about jobs. Such as the yin yang of capitalism, socialism, and stuff like that. Again, what we have to feed in to the narrative of capitalism and socialism is also equalism. And thinking about thinking out the box as to what we can do to try and improve the environment. Now, again, I welcome the fact that Lorna Slater's again committed to independence. Because 2023, I think, is going to be, again, a tumultuous year, and for uh, both sides, I think, because I think the way that the union is being run at this moment in time is going to ultimately be their own undoing. They're going to do the majority of the work through the policies that they are actually pursuing, and the ineffectiveness of tackling the current energy crisis, the current the current union crisis at this moment in time, the stagnation of wages, and again, it's just adding to the case that Scotland can do so much better. It's just that people just need to, they need to be tipped over that edge, and and take it is actually a leap of faith, because nobody has ever once said that independence will deliver us a land of milk and honey the very next day. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard work, to start a country from scratch and stuff like that. It's going to take time for the infrastructure to come, to actually click in, and everything, to join up. But surely to God, it's a lot better than what we're currently facing, through this crisis at this moment in time.
It offers, if nothing else, a degree of hope, Chris, something that seems in pretty short supply, at least in Westminster politics at the moment. Thank you. But I'm afraid that is all the time that we have this evening. In making these programmes, Broadcasting Scotland relies on the support of viewers and others who value our distinctive approach to news, current affairs and culture. Please help us to continue to make these programmes, to continue to develop the station, and to make new programmes for you. Our programmes will always be free to view, but if you can afford £5 per month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. We have set ourselves a target of raising £30,000 to enable us to employ staff to make more programmes. To everyone who has donated, and to everyone who has signed up to make a regular monthly payment as a Broadcasting Scotland supporter, thank you very much. There are other ways in which you can contribute to our work. If you would like to volunteer to work with Broadcasting Scotland, either behind the scenes or in front of the cameras, or in any other way, then please visit our website at www.broadcastingscotland.scot and send us a message there. You can find us on Twitter at BroadcastScot. Please like and retweet us there. And you can also find us on Facebook by searching for Broadcasting Scotland. When you're watching us on YouTube, it would be great if you would like and subscribe to Broadcasting Scotland on that platform. Click on the little bell. Now, we will be back tomorrow evening at 7 with the next edition of Scotland at 7, so please come back and join us then. I'd like to thank everyone who has been watching this evening, and I'd like to say a very special thanks to our very special guest, Chris McCusker. Thanks, Chris.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again, Andrew.
It's great to see you, Chris. Thank you. On
Cheers,
this
mate.
day in 1811 saw the world's first ever golf tournament for women, and it was held over 18 holes on a pitch and putt course in Musselburgh. The prize for the winner was a creel and a small work basket. The runners-up prizes were 2 fine blue silk handkerchiefs from Barcelona. The names of those who competed are sadly not known. I hope that you have a very peaceful evening, and please keep safe and keep warm. Bye-bye.